Obviously, every LS engine on planet Earth is turbocharged, and we get tons of small block Fords that come through turbocharged. But very rarely do I see small block Chevy with a turbocharger on it, and that's what we have here today. One thing that's always consistent with the small block Chevys that come through the door is everybody leaves disappointed with how much power they make naturally aspirated. So hopefully with the turbo, things will turn around a little bit. This was tuned naturally aspirated and with nitrous at another shop. I kind of was coming into this hoping that maybe there'd be a little something to start with to save us a little bit of time. But the way they had the file configured, it was just easier for me to start all over again. It was tuned on a Dyno jet previously, and the naturally aspirated numbers were right in line with all of the other ones that we see. That leaves everybody wanting a little bit more, I guess you could say. We have pretty small wastegate springs in this. We have CO2, dual solenoids, you know, that whole deal. Start with some part throttle, start shaping a fuel curve a little bit, bang out spring pressure, and then we'll start turning it up. All right, this thing is ice cold, and this is a fresh file that I built from scratch, so I have no idea if it'll start. And let's get a little temperature into it. We'll have to verify that the timing's synced correctly. Let's see, there's got 140 switches in here. I think most of them are fans and stuff, so we'll try no switches first. Pretty damn good. I can live with that. Fueling's pretty close too. All right, let's fire up timing light. Here is the learn table that it came in with. So I'm a little interested to see if this was just kind of maybe some laziness, or if this thing's just gonna be an a-hole. Every now and then you come across that one car that just won't cooperate, and you kind of end up with some of this type of stuff, but I hope that's not the case. Made 2 short runs just to try and shape the curve a little bit. I revved each one a little higher. Hopefully this will be like the first full run. Let's see what happens. $371. The converter's so loose, our calculated engine RPM is off a little bit, but we can work with it. Graph's just like dead flat. Just barely made 2 pounds of boost. But once a whole bunch of fuel rolling into the throttle, still need to give it some more. But once it gets going, damn, within 1% the whole run. So we'll add some fuel down here, and the ignition looks a little choppy. And it has plugs that I don't want to run a lot of boost on. So I'm going to pull some plugs out of it. Well, that looks fun. Luckily nothing's in the way over here. As you kind of hope with 2 pounds of boost, we're nice and safe on the plugs, but I can't believe they're spraying this thing with a number 5 in it. So we're going to throw some 7s in there, and I got to gap them down first. Alright, driver's side's done. And I think I would rather get harpooned in the butthole than to put plugs on this side at the moment. I just realized there's 7 spark plugs and not 8, and I just so happen to have like 1 random solo plug that's exactly what we need for this. So I feel like we dodged a bullet there. All right, I got all the plugs swapped. The passenger side actually wasn't quite as bad as I thought it was going to be. While we're at it, turn the CO2 on, and I'm going to configure all the PID nonsense now. Maybe I'm not going to configure the PID. All the like everything inside the car has lost power all of a sudden. It doesn't make any sense at all, but tried starting it a couple times. The starter grinds more often than not on this thing, and the starter grinded twice and then all the power came back on. So that's a new one. Fuel pressure sensor was working, now it's not, and dome pressure is working now, so I can go ahead and set that up. All right, this is with 5 pounds of CO2. Picked up quite a bit. I'm curious to see how much the boost actually went up. So boost is only 6 pounds. It was making like 1 pound, 2 pounds before, so that's right. That's a pretty kick-ass gain. And you can see here, once I roll into the throttle, even after the acceleration enrichment has left, but we still need a bunch of fuel. So I think this is the delay. So I might play around with the accel enrichment, see if we can get that to go away before I go and murder the fuel table. If so, I might have to build a custom table to get rid of this so our whole fuel table doesn't look all janky. And then it kind of overcorrects in the opposite direction, and then we got this almost just looks like the PID on the air fuel is off a little. So before I go going crazy with all this, I might make another run. Our RPM tray still looks a little weak with how tight the plugs are gapped, and boost actually tapers off a little bit with RPM, so I might make an adjustment for that too. This is, yeah, it's kind of dropping. This is more converter than anything else right here. With all that being said, I might turn it up another pound or two, or maybe put a touch of timing in it, and probably try and hit that 500 mark on 93, and then we can put some race fuel in it. I'm gonna try and shape the curve a little bit differently with some timing, see if it'll make 500 without touching the boost, and depending on what that does there will dictate if we do the boost up or not. Let me put some accel enrichment in this thing real quick. I'll try that. I'm not convinced that's gonna do what I want it to do, but we'll give it a shot. Sound like on the camera, but sitting here it sounds like it's making 1500 horsepower. So the timing didn't quite do what I wanted it to do, but also we had about 1 more pound of boost for most of the run on the previous one. Either way, I'm gonna go the opposite direction on timing, and it looks like the accel enrichment did what I want. I'm still going to add a little bit in the fuel table, but went in the right direction there. So let's try maybe another 2 or 3 pounds of dome pressure, and I'm going to pull, I might pull 2 or 3 degrees of timing out of it. 501, but it sounds like it's got a little misfire to it. Here's torque. Here's where the boost was lower. You can see just how much harder it's splashed in the converter, and did, I would say, about what I would expect it to do with the changes that I made. I'm sure whatever the misfire is right in line with the choppy RPM graph. I'm not sure what my next plane of attack is, since it just obviously has brand new plugs and they're gapped pretty tight. So even though we were past the point of timing to make power, we don't have any heat in the plugs. Just spoke with the customer. We might change up plans a little bit on this. Originally we were going to do race fuel because he doesn't have the fuel pumps for ethanol, but with the leaded fuel and the Bosch sensors, and he's now on the, he kind of wanted to change up fuel pumps anyways, so this might end up coming back to do switch over to methanol. I'm, god damn it, switching over to ethanol. Whether or not we're going to diagnose the misfire now or then, still kind of up in the air. It's Friday, 4 o'clock, so I'm going to make one more run here just for diagnostic purposes for the misfire, and then I'm getting out of here for the weekend, so we'll figure this out the first of the week. This car's back for round 2. Last time we got up to about 500 horsepower, and just started dealing with some pretty bad misfires. Called it quits. What he wanted to make power-wise and what he had available fuel system-wise didn't quite match up. So I got a second pump in it now, assuming we can get through the 93 octane without misfiring. Then we'll drain the tank, put E85 in it. We're not doing flex fuel. We're just going to do 2 separate tunes. So keeping my fingers crossed that things will go a little bit smoother this time. Conveniently, it looks like our fuel pressure sensor has quit working. It's just going ape shit, so I don't know if it's the sensor itself or some wiring. And I'm just gonna go ahead and make a run on wastegate. Just put a little heat in the trans and just make sure everything is you know, operating as expected. We did change wastegate, our fuel pressure regulator springs, and I adjusted the fuel pressure a little bit, so we might have to do a little touch up. Just watching the real-time display, it looked like we were off, I think I saw like 5 or 6%. So let me dig through the log real quick. Alright, if we scroll through, a little bit rich right in here. So pull a touch of fuel out. And then past that, I consider that to be pretty right on the money. So that's good. Changing out the spring on the regulator didn't totally screw us. And what's cool is we are targeting 261 pounds of boost. So that's a new one. The table has 7 in it because I have the CO2 bottle turned off. So now we got to figure out why that is happening. As fun as that sounds, I don't think that's what we're after right now. Okay, so our dome pressure target is actually reading correctly in the live display, but the dome pressure sensor is not working and the fuel pressure sensor is not working. So my assumption there would be it's something to do with the wiring. I'm gonna take a look at that real quick. And with further testing, the boost solenoids are not working either. It's commanding everything correctly, but nothing's working. So maybe we'll get lucky and there's just like a whole connector that's unhooked or something like that. Let's see what we can find. Can't get lucky enough for it just to be one connector unplugged, but so far I found we got a spade terminal going directly to the fuel pressure sensor that is not connected to anything. So I don't know if anything else is keyed to that somewhere else. So now I'm going to try and figure out where that's supposed to go, and I guess we'll just do this one thing at a time. So I was able to find where it's supposed to go back here in this loom. So now we have fuel pressure and figured out what's going on with the dome pressure. Even though I set the bottle pressure last time, the thing's leaking like crazy. So I guess the regulator for the bottle was just turned all the way down. So let's see if we can figure out a solution to the leaky CO2. Actually, it looks like the hose might just be jacked up. So we'll trim that back a little bit. Maybe we'll get lucky there. You see, we're targeting 7. We're hanging out right at 7. Fuel pressure's at 0 because it's not primed anymore. And we got pressure here. And as long as this damn it, I'm just gonna replace this fitting too. Alright, now we should be ready to start again. I take that back. This fitting just wants to fall out, and all of our fittings on the bottom are all loose. So I'm just gonna say screw it and reconfigure the whole damn thing. Hopefully that debacle is behind us now. I think we're good. So we're gonna try 10 pounds of dome pressure, which is right where it started misfiring before. So obviously if he was unable to fix the misfire, then we'll just kind of be done, but let's keep our fingers crossed. I'd really like to power through this thing this time. All right, let's see what happens. Way better. Picked up like 30 horsepower too. Ooh, that makes me happy. 99 out of 100 times when a car leaves with misfires, it comes back with misfires. So this is a good sign. All right, the converter in this thing's a little goofy, so it ramps up real hard. I might speed the ramp up a little bit. Let's see. I'll probably raise the start RPM a little bit too. So right about there, we got like a 10% correction, which is kind of crazy. And then it drops down to like 4 or 5. So we'll correct that in a minute. Seems like the converter's so loose, it's throwing the RPM off quite a bit, but 532. And the red line was last time I was here. You can see how unhappy it was. So it looks like we're going in the right direction. Plugs are cold. I'll try a touch of timing just to make sure we're in the ballpark on that. And honestly, on just 93 octane, I'm okay with the power levels that it's making. Maybe if it makes, what did it make, 530? So maybe we get to like 550 or something like that. And we have ethanol here, so there's no reason to beat it to death on 93. Maybe 1 or 2 more runs on 93, and I'm gonna murder that fan. We'll clean up the fueling, touch of timing on this run, and see what happens. Bottle's empty. So even at the 8 pounds of boost, it picked up almost 30 horsepower with some timing, and we're just going to bypass the CO2 bottle altogether, and we'll use shop air to regulate the boost. Oh cool, we're at 669 pounds of boost now for our target. Alright, so got this regulator from air compressor going to our solenoids. So let's try it again. Probably the most complication and problems I've ever had with a CO2 bottle in my life. Same run, we just actually have the boost should go up a little bit this time. Now it's down on power, so let's start doing some more troubleshooting. All right, hopefully that one was an easy fix. There's just spark plug wire not connected to anything, so that would make all the sense in the world. Again, no changes. Just try and make a run on 8 cylinders, and damn, works a whole lot better with everything working correctly. That was 575. Let's see if the boost went up any. Actually made less boost. That was 7.5, 7.7. And we need to knock like 5 or 6% of fuel out of it. 575. RPMs are low because it kind of peaks up high here and then falls. So this is the max or the RPM in which it made that horsepower. So these are all with the same target dome pressure. Yellows when we were misfiring, reds when it cleared out a little bit, and blue is with some timing in it. I'm more than happy with that power on 93 octane. So I'm gonna yank a couple plugs out, make sure we're good. Actually need to clean that fueling up just a little bit, so I'm probably gonna make one more pull on pump gas. So if we look at the log from this one, the big lean spike that we had rolling into the throttle now is gone. I'll show you what I did to correct that here in a minute. And you can see we're pretty rich, like probably 6-7% on average. So if we hop into our software, you can see it hits pretty hard here and then drops off pretty hard after. Our dyno chart is agreeing with this, and basically everything up to around, I don't know, probably about here or so, we're pretty spot on. So since we're VE based, I tend to err on the side of caution, and I'll still give it some fuel as we go up in manifold pressure, because I'd rather be pulling fuel out of it than adding it. Got some fuel out there. And in our acceleration enrichment, I did make some changes on this table here. And the big one is usually, I kind of almost eliminate this table from the equation. More often than not, I feel you don't need both TPS and map-based acceleration enrichment. But the map-based enrichment made a big difference on this one. So it's always nice when you have tables available, even when maybe you don't need them. So we're a lot better off there. So on this run, it's mainly just gonna be the fuel changes, and I'm gonna touch through just a little bit of dome pressure at it. Actually dropped a little bit of power, and if I had to guess, I'd say because I sped the ramp rate up more, that the boost probably didn't go up quite as much because it was not loaded quite as hard. Let's see if that assumption's right or if I'm just a dumbass. Fueling's a whole lot closer. I'm gonna take a little bit more out, and boost is just a touch lower. That might have just been more temperature than anything. So again, I'm not trying to set the world on fire on 93. Just keep cleaning this fuel up. And I'm just gonna try a touch of timing. And the main reason I'm making this run isn't that I want to make more power on 93. It's just the closer I get the fueling on 93, the easier it's going to make my life switching over to E85. So this hopefully will be the last one. So at first glance I thought I lost some power, but overlaying the logs, it fluctuates a little bit, but we got like a 2 or 3 PSI difference. So I'm also revving this thing a little higher than I need to. I'm going to start backing off on RPM a little bit. Trying to decide if I should just switch to E85 now or not. Alright, we're still good to go on the plugs. So we're going to throw some ethanol in and turn it up a little bit. So he brought some fittings and stuff which make life a whole lot easier. I wanted to make it a little longer, so I used some of my own crap just to extend it. So I'll start it up and drain all this 93 out. Most inconvenient place for a fill dangling. You got a surge tank. You got this thing back here too, so hopefully, I'm not sure if the plan is to use that to hit a number or what, but I generally don't really prefer mixing nitrous and turbos unless it's something that's really set up and designed for it. So may or may not come back to that. And we only have 10 gallons of ethanol, so we'll have to do what we got to do rather quickly, or at least in a very limited number of runs. I feel like you could probably fit like 3 or 4 dead bodies back here. This trunk is huge. Alright, added a couple custom tables for our fueling and timing changes required for the ethanol. Let's see if it'll start. It'll probably struggle to start at first because there's not much fuel pressure and all that good stuff. But I'm going to give it a minute to cycle through. So we're going to try basically the same boost with just a little bit of timing. I have a sneaking suspicion that there's something that's a little bit unhappy, and I'm hoping that suspicion is wrong, so this should tell us. I picked up a bunch of power, made 616. Can't tell if it was misfiring or maybe it hit the limiter. I did bring the limiter down a little bit, kind of didn't take that into consideration. Air fuel's a little bit all over the place, like the O2 sensor's being an asshole. Boost was the same though, so that's good. Alright, let me dig through this and make some changes. Alright, I'm just making adding a bunch of fuel up top. Not a lot of excitement there. I know we're soft on the pump gas timing. Put a touch of timing in, blend all that. And if we look over here, get locked in the car, god damn it. So this is previously with the misfires. This is on pump gas, clearly way happier. And then with the ethanol and a little bit of timing, that's that. It is possible our misfire might be back. So we'll try a couple things, see if we can't figure something out about that. Since we got ethanol in it, I leaned it out just a touch. Added a little bit of timing and tried to clean up the fueling a little bit on our custom table, and our fuel pressure maintained, so that's good. So now the $1 million question just is going to be what's up with this misfire. Previously, the fix since last time was basically all the new ignition components, cap, rotor, wires, all that good stuff. So let's see if some little leaner, a little bit of timing maybe will help clear it up a little bit. Picked up another 10 horsepower, but sounds like shit. Dead nuts that time, so we're good on that. Boost is good. Putting plugs in this thing is a royal pain in the ass. Last time I went through the hassle of putting plugs in it, didn't change anything. Vlog looks great. Decisions. All right, I looked everything over. I pulled all the plugs that I could get to without having to rebuild the whole engine. Burned my whole arm off, and nothing jumps out as problematic. I'm gonna actually try and turn the boost up just a little bit for kind of diagnostic purposes and see if the misfire gets worse. Way worse. Sound like a damn machine gun. Since it's driving through the converter so quick, one thing that I did do is bring the actual rev limit down a little bit, and even though we're still a little ways from it, and you can actually log if the rev limiter is active or not, and it's showing that it is not, just raise the rev limiter back up out of the way to see if maybe it's kind of tickling that a little bit. That's kind of going to piss me off a little bit. Looks pretty damn clean. Wow, that's aggravating. Alright, moment of truth. We'll turn it up a little bit and see if it stays away. Basically a little bit more dome pressure. I pulled a little bit of fuel away at higher RPM just because the correction was a little negative. Moment of truth, I guess, on the misfire that's apparently just a rev limiter that's not active, that is active. God damn it. I'm a little frustrated if you can't tell. Not entirely just with the car, just with everything. It's like every time I get completely overwhelmed and overloaded with work, nothing will go right. And it just makes everything so much worse. Ran clean, but doesn't look like the boost went up any. Yeah, boost was the same, so we'll get a little more aggressive with the dome pressure. That's weird. Picked up a lot down low with very little. Now all of a sudden we need a lot to make a little bit, which, I mean, the higher you go, the more normal that is, but at 10 pounds of boost or whatever this thing's making, I wouldn't really expect that to be happening yet. Probably made twice the amount of runs that it would normally take to tune something like this. Just not really picking up any power, and we're dropping fuel pressure. As a result of that, we're out of injector. 107, 108%. That's a bummer. This is like worst case scenario right here. It's like everything is wrong. All right, let's investigate. That's a big part of the problem. Ironically, I've checked that 3 or 4 times throughout the day. So this thing was bugging me yesterday, so I left it on the dyno overnight. Slept on it, sourced some fuel, gonna put some fuel in it, try a couple more things this morning. The converter in this definitely just isn't up to the task, especially kind of heard the history of the converter, and it was kind of basically from like 2 builds ago, so it's not close. And so we'll definitely do some touch up at the racetrack with this. All right, so basically what I'm after here is this sat all night long, so I'm gonna see how the cold start is. I kind of expect it's gonna run like donkey ass. And you can really see the more and more the power goes up, the more and more our runs going over this way. And the miss on that one, it was basically up into the rev limiter. So it's pushing through the converter, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And the converter efficiency is pretty terrible. Even at the best spot, it still sucks. So fuel pressure seems to be getting worse. I just checked all the fuses and switches and all the associated shit. Everything looks fine. Made one more run. I made a jumper basically bypassing the hob switch, which is turning on the second fuel pump. And now our closed loop correction was in with 2%, and we have all the fuel pressure that we need. So I think we found the culprit. This one is with the boost back up where sort of first discovered our fuel pressure problems. 123,000. Fuel pressure's good. 94% duty cycle, so we're gonna call that quits. It made 700, like 694, which it made with less boost, but I don't know how many different times I gotta kind of say there's something going on with the converter on this. So almost like a little bit of a happy ending to what seemed like was going to be a shit show. We got this thing sorted out. We don't need to put this back on the dyno. Even if he changes converters, I can fix the rest of this at the racetrack. So I'll take it, all things considered. Now I'm only 2 days behind schedule, but it is what it is. This way it goes sometimes. So that's gonna do it for this video. As always, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.